Peace. Today is Sunday, June 15th, 2025, which is recognized as Father's Day today. So the current climate in America, is Civil War-esque. And I don't mean war as in violence, even though it is some violence that's taking place. So you have the mass deportation, immigration movement that the Trump administration is carrying out. You got the quote-unquote ICE protests that's taking place in several different states and cities. But this weekend in particular, yesterday, which was Saturday, you had the No Kings protest that reportedly was in 2,000 different cities. Also, you had the two lawmakers in Minnesota come up into some real critical, great bodily harm situations to where two of them even returned to the essence. And that's in America, right? I'm not going to talk about the Israel and Iran missile joints they got going on right now. We're only going to talk about in America, the current climate in America, right? So it's highly emotional. It's understandable, right? Because there's some valid emotional reasonings about people being separated from their family, fathers, mothers, kids being left unattended, right? There's valid reasons to be emotional. And also it can be valid reasons to protest, right? Because you want your voice heard. You want the government, the lawmakers to know that you don't agree with the current laws and how they're being executed, right? Understandable. You got First Amendment rights, they're being executed. So that's fine. But being analytical and a critical thinker and striving to be as objective as you possibly can, that would be the superficial, right, what's in front of you, issues to complain about. Is all this a distraction while other grandiose, nefarious plans are being executed behind the scenes? That could definitely be taking place, right? So on the surface, the superficial view would be, it's America. America has rights. Americans should be priority, and then you got the immigrants. They not bad people, for the most part. Immigrants are bad people. It's not that they are not illegal, but they good people. They don't do anything, and the laws are all wrong. The laws need to be made different. They've been here for decades, right? And you can just continuously go down that rabbit hole, because the rebuttal to that would be, well, you've been here for decades and you never got made legal. Then the next rebuttal would be, it's hard to become legal. Sometimes it takes 10 to 20 years. You could just keep going down the rabbit hole. So as human beings, we typically only care about what's most endear and close to us, right? That's all we care about. Like, what's going on with us? Like, how does it affect my household? Right? So, typically, the action is, it's always broken up in race, right? And that's fine. You can look at it in race, right? So take when the police seems to be shooting black men, black people in general, across the board, crazy, which was, it seemed like 2 or 3 times a month. I know somebody gonna look at this and fact check me and say it wasn't 2 or 3 times a month. I'm just throwing numbers out there so we can go with, because that's what it seemed like, right? Seeming like it don't make it a fact. I'm just saying. 5, 6 years ago, when it was crazy work, kind of ran into that whole Black Lives Matter movement, George Floyd, and so on and so forth. But before then, you had a dozen, 8, 9, 10 black people being shot by police, right? So let's just say that, right? Let's just go with that. I knew a lot of black people that didn't go out and protest. If you think about it, if you have, say, 50 million black people in the U.S., maybe 500,000, 1 million across the board was actually protesting. And I would argue that it was because it wasn't at their doorstep. It didn't affect them personally. It didn't hit home. It didn't resonate enough. Now, I'm sure 40, 50 million black people had the conversation about it. But actually going out and participating in a protest, very few black people went out and protested. Including myself. I didn't go out and protest. Yeah. I didn't. I had many conversations, right? Hey, just for the record, it was fucked up. Right? So we're going to call a spade a spade. It was fucked up that police officers, whether they were scared, whether they wasn't trained good enough, whatever the case may be, they were morally wrong for killing them people. So I dealt with that from a race-based analysis. Black people getting killed by the police. How did many black people participate, specifically protesting? Very small. So you take right now, right? You take what's going on right now. With the immigration that's taking place, right? The deportation that's taking place. Now, the perception is it's all Mexicans. Now, I'm not for sure. Now, I know for sure it's not all Mexicans, right? We know that for a fact. However, depending on where you are, and it's a concentrated area of Latin people, primarily Mexicans, and ICE is running over there, then that's going to be your perception, right? Because that's all you know, right? That's what you see. So let's just go with that. I know it's Africans that's being deported. It's some Asians that's being deported. It is some, I think Venezuelans, right? It's people getting deported across the board. If you're here illegally, they're sniffing you out, but the perception is, especially in LA, it's Mexicans. And so, I don't know how big it is, but every now and again you see something saying, well, why blacks aren't out protesting and helping to protest against this evil, morally incorrect deportation of these migrants. I just told you, not too many blacks even went out for the freaking police killing black people. So what I'm doing on this build, I'm really just trying to spark a thought, to do some critical thinking. And don't be at each other's necks for some bullshit, right? It would be bullshit to be at each other's necks. And at each other, I mean like black and Mexican. It's crazy work. Get out of here. Both on the bottom end of the totem pole. What's the point of beefing with each other? It's crazy. And with that being said, I personally didn't expect Mexicans to be out protesting for black people getting killed by the police. I took no offense to that. I'm sure that some Mexicans and different races was out there protesting police brutality, killing black people, you know, Black Lives Matter, because we've seen it, right? So we know it, and that's perfectly fine. But for the people who didn't, okay. Emotions typically have you make ill-advised decisions. Being mad at black people for not protesting about migrants being deported. Everybody just stay focused. Just stay focused. I think it's a bigger play at hand, that the distractions is clouding the clandestine plan that's being made. And I really don't even think it's a Democratic or Republican thing. I just think it's an elitist thing that's taking place. And we know this because this type of shit plays out through history. Right? It play out through history. So to condemn any race about not standing with you shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand, about what you feel is an injustice, you shouldn't hold nobody accountable for that. You can't hold nobody. You can hold somebody accountable, but then that would be fucking crazy too. Laws is laws, and we don't have to agree with them, man. You got to change the law. Take the 3-strike law. The 3-strike law. Put a lot of people in jail for stealing a piece of pizza, for stealing some gum. A lot of black people went to jail over that 3-strike law. They got life for doing real small crimes. That was wrong. It was the law, though, so the courts were able to give people life in jail for stealing a slice of pizza, stealing some beef jerky. That law didn't get changed until 20-something years after the fact, right? Bill Clinton actually apologized to, I don't know if he was in a church, he was in some lecture or something that he was in, and he claims that he didn't know that it was going to happen like that. He was really targeting hardened criminals that was committing felonious crimes. So a lot of people that had 3 strikes under stealing pizzas and gum and beef jerky, they was actually let out of jail. But they did 15, 20 years though. So I use that as my example about this current immigration law. You have to change the law. I know that don't do nothing for what's taking place right now, because people is getting deported right now, right? So you like, fuck the law. Therein lies the power struggle. Again, this is a quick build to spark thought, spark conversation, do some critical deep diving into it. To strive not to be as emotional, and just to create a dialogue. That's the video. Like, comment, subscribe. Always want to know your feedback. Let me know. Let's get the engagement. Hopefully we get some people to start the conversation in the comments. Let's build. As always, appreciate y'all. Peace.